Hello, this is Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. I am your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. All right, quick quiz. How do you pronounce the ed ending on regular past tense verbs? I'll give you a moment. Ready? If you said ud, you are incorrect. Sorry. What am I talking about? Well, there are actually 3 different pronunciations of the ed on regular past tense verbs. And let's talk about why. So, the way that we determine which ed ending goes with which verb actually has to do with the final sound in the verb. For example, if you think of the verb look, the last sound in that verb is k, and the k sound is a voiceless sound. So the way that I always tell my students to practice this is to take your hand and put it on your neck. K, k, k. If you don't feel any sort of vibration from your voice box, that means it's a voiceless sound and that the past tense ed ending is going to sound like t. The reason is that the t sound is also a voiceless sound. So when we say the past tense of look, it is looked. And if you put your hand here, you can hear that your voice box doesn't vibrate for the end of that sound. Looked, right? So you're moving from one voiceless sound to another. Another example is the word wash, right? Wash. Shh. You don't feel anything happening in your voice box. So always try. Take your hand and say wash. Nothing's happening. You don't feel your voice box vibrating. So the past tense ending, the ed ending pronunciation for wash is washed, right? Washed. It's the T sound. Let's think of other words. Let's think of the word play. Play, play. The A is the last sound of that verb. And if you put your hand here, you can feel your voice box vibrating. Play, play. When you feel the voice box vibrating, that means it's a voiced sound. And that means you're going to use the D sound because D is also a voiced sound. D, 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 D. You can feel it. So the past tense of play is played, played. Another example, show, right? Show, show. I can feel the vibration here. Show. So it becomes showed in the past tense. Another example is, let's think of one, love. V. The V sound is a voice sound. You can feel it here, love. So the past tense ending is loved. So what about that ud sound? There are so many non-native speakers who end up adding that ud sound to every single past tense verb. And that has to do a lot of times with their native language because sometimes that's just how you pronounce different syllables. Well, for us, the only time we pronounce the past tense ed ending like ud is when the word ends in a T or it ends in a D, right? Invite, right? Invited. So we have that extra syllable there. And that's what happens. The ud adds an extra syllable to the verb. Invited, invited. Instead of invite, which is 2 syllables, the past tense becomes invited. Decide becomes decided. We add that extra syllable, and that's because after a T or a D, our mouth needs more time to fully formulate that sound. So we have to add ud in order to give our mouths enough time to form the sound and make it distinct from invite, invited. Otherwise, it sounds like invited, invited. It doesn't sound right. So we have to give ourselves time to fully form that sound, invited. The thing that's important to understand is it's not the letter that affects whether or not the sound is voiced or not voiced. It's actually whether or not the sound is voiced or not. Because some words, like the S, sometimes sounds like a Z, right? And so it doesn't really matter if it's an S at the end or if it matters whether or not the sound is a Z because the S is not voiced and the Z is voiced. So there are some examples of verbs that you can think about like close, right? Closed. It's actually the D sound because close is closed, even though it's spelled C-L-O-S-E. The sound is a Z, so you have to do that voiced sound at the end. So I hope that clarifies any doubts you have about the different pronunciations of the ed endings. This is one of my top tips to sound more natural in English because it is something that native English speakers do without thinking. We don't think about it, we just do it naturally. So if you want to sound more natural in English, you need to start getting those ed endings correct. Of course, it's fine if you make a mistake here or there, but if you're consistently making mistakes or you're always pronouncing the ed ending like ud on every single verb, chances are you don't sound natural and it's a little harder to understand you. I hope this tip helped you out and reminded you of how important it is to pronounce your ed endings accurately in order to sound more natural in English. Once again, I'm Kim from EnglishWithKim.com. I'm your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. Take care. Goodbye.